Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your work, and I just want to echo the words of my colleagues to just urge your continued pushback on anti-Semitism. And I will move to a subject near and dear to my heart, which is the condition of the world for women and girls. Interestingly, just coincidentally, last night I had an opportunity to be at a dinner with many women ambassadors to the United States. It was a very common thread of concern about violence against women, especially girls out of school, refugees, Ukraine, for example, the kidnapping of so many children, women obviously being left to take care of their families because their men were in war. We heard from the former ambassador of Afghanistan, who was near tears because of what's happening in Afghanistan every day, as women just have lost just about every right they had gained. I guess I could go on and on. I had a group from Iraq in my office the other day, concerned there. And so I don't want to make it sound like the world is terrible for women, but there's obviously a lot going on there. So, and it could be, I know my colleague, Ms. Torres, could tell you about what's happening in South America. We have visited Africa together here, my colleague on my left here. And just, so here's my question. Tell us first of all, what you think are the most important issues facing the girls and women of the world, and what kind of things the UN are doing to promote their safety, their education, their health, their welfare, economic well-being.
Thank you so much for that question, and I feel the same commitment to this issue as you do and so many others. The situation in Afghanistan with women being forced to remain home and not work and girls not going to school is appalling. Iranian women being brutalized and killed in the streets, Ukrainian women being raped and brutalized, and so we can go on and on. So what are the important issues? It is protection for women. And we have to make sure that in every resolution that we pass in the Security Council and in the General Assembly, that we recognize and highlight the importance of focus on women and girls, on education, on health, and on safety. We saw in Ethiopia as well as in Ukraine, rape being used as a tool of war. We have to also look at accountability. How do you hold those who commit those crimes against women? How do you hold them accountable and ensure that they don't commit those crimes again? And I think if we can focus on those areas, on their education, their health, and their security, I think we get to the bulk of it. But we have to do it in every single resolution that we're working on, and every single opportunity that we
Excuse
have.
me, not to interrupt, but can you give me some examples of some of the efforts of the UN?
You know, we have worked with the UN and in the Security Council to condemn the situation both in Afghanistan as well as in Iran. We had something called an ARIA formula meeting at the United Nations, where we brought a large number of co-sponsors and Iranian activists to highlight the situation in Iran and bring the situation to the forefront in the United Nations. And of course, in Ukraine, we're constantly raising these
Excuse
issues
me,
with
also,
the UN.
there are many UN agencies, correct?
Yes.
That are working with refugees and promoting health and so forth.
UNICEF, I'll start with UNICEF, where there's an American head. UNICEF focuses on children, but they also focus on issues of women and girls because they're very much related. We're working with UN Women, and we've had UN Women come and brief the council on several occasions on the situation in Ukraine and the situation in Afghanistan, as well as the situation in Iran. We work closely with World Food Program, where hunger is more prevalent among women than others, and if women are not allowed to work, for example, in Afghanistan, then they will not get humanitarian assistance. So we're working very closely with World Food Program to ensure that they develop programs that will target women and make sure that aid and humanitarian assistance is able to get through to them.
Thank you so much. I yield back, Matt. Mr.
Thank you.
Hughes. So I want to sort of get a little bit more specific on some of the questions that I went over earlier. Again, thank you for your service. So, we spoke before about what's happening to women and girls in Afghanistan. Just every day, Taliban clamping down, banned from secondary schools, from universities, from working at NGOs. They're banished from the public sphere. It's my understanding that the UN is still on the ground. So really my line of questioning now is because we are asked to fund the UN. I think it's important for people to know some of the efforts of UN agencies. So if you could help us with, for example, now Afghanistan, UN still on the ground. Is there any hope or any what can be done to help the women and the girls?
The UN is still on the ground. UNAMA is an important partner of ours, and they're working diligently to find a way to support Afghan women. We also have a number of international NGOs as well that are working. And what I was told in a recent briefing is that there are actually some areas inside of Afghanistan where this edict is not being fully implemented. And so there are some girls in very limited areas and locations who are able to go to school.
Excuse me, I guess the big question here is, can we still get the money to these NGOs without the Taliban getting hold of the money?
We are still supporting international NGOs that are not working directly with the Taliban. UNAMA is trying to work, I know, with some of what they consider less less aggressive members of the Taliban to see how they can find a way to push them to push inside their system to change this edict, because ultimately that is what's going to make a difference, and that is reversing the edict. It's hard to work around an edict that does not allow women to work, because the majority of the people in need are women, and they can only be accessed by women. And we've discouraged them from using men to replace women in these key positions. So I know that they are working to try to find a way around this and find ways to get assistance directly to the women in need.
Let me change just a little bit. We've heard reports that there have just been hundreds of Ukrainian children kidnapped to Russia. Could you tell us about that and any efforts to stop it or to get the children back?
I spoke about that in the Security Council and the General Assembly as well last week. We are very concerned and appalled by the fact that thousands of Ukrainian children have been forcibly adopted.
Are they being taken off the streets of Ukraine, or when they cross borders? How are they?
Most of them are taken in the areas where Russia has gained control. Some of them were in orphanages already and may have lost their families in the fighting. I'm not quite sure where they're taking them all from, but we do know that they are taking, they're forcibly taking these children, issuing Russian passports and putting them in Russian homes.
And, I mean, is there anything,
You know, we,
I guess the question is, what can be done, or what is being done?
NGOs, the UN, they're all attempting to engage the Russians on this, who are denying that they're forcing children away from their homes. But this is something we have to hold them accountable for. Of the many atrocities that they have committed, this is among the worst.
All right, sorry to end on that note. Okay, yield back.
Good question.
Thank you. Well, on that area of paying dues, I think not enough people know about some of the good things that the UN does. I mean, we are all aghast at the position on the anti-Semitism. I urge you to keep pushing back on that. But in terms of some other areas, especially keeping children safe, preventing child marriage, FGM, sex and labor trafficking, which are the agencies that are part of the UN that you are confident are doing a good job in this area?
I think UNICEF is doing an extraordinary job in focusing attention on all of these issues. We saw this, particularly child marriages and sexual exploitation of children, actually increase during COVID because children were not in school. And girls were not in school, and I've seen UNICEF really again focus tremendous attention on these efforts. The current head of UNICEF is an American, and she came with a tremendous amount of experience in this area, and I know that she has really galvanized her staff to address these issues.
I thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go vote, and I yield back, and thank you for this hearing. And thank you, Madam
you.
Ambassador. Wish you the best.